If you're watching this video, then I'm guessing you're tired of the Kim player that can somehow summon his boss 300 times in one round. It's frustrating. As a shmup versus game, Twinkle Sprites takes various parts of the genre and makes them work in competitive context. Bosses are a big part of the game that can give you a huge advantage. They're big, cover up the screen, and have weird attacks that can be difficult to deal with. All of this is on top of the regularly scheduled fireballs and EXs your opponent will continue to send you. Hopefully this video goes a long way in helping you learn how bosses work and what strategies you can use to make your life easier when fighting them. One more thing. If you're watching this, then I'm assuming you understand the basic mechanics of the game. I'll describe some simple stuff as they pertain to bosses, but this video isn't really for getting a day one understanding of how the game works. Try looking at the Gamefaqs guide by Mike Uyama that's linked in the description. When you're playing some Twinkle Sprites, and you think to yourself, hey, I'd like to make the life of the person on the other side of the screen slightly harder. The fastest way to do that is to pick a top tier like Sprites. But assuming you failed Sanford Kelly like I do on a daily basis, then doing a boss attack is the next best thing. There are two ways to summon bosses. 1. Charge your meter to max and let it rip. Or 2. Reflect your reversal fireballs in one combo. Now the first one is pretty straightforward, but let me explain condition number 2 a bit more in depth. In this game, most combos are made from chain reactions. You shoot one thing, and your combo grows from every subsequent thing that explodes as a result. If you shoot stuff down mid-combo, that can actually hurt your combo potential. So let's say I see 3 reversal fireballs coming from my opponent. If I can make those 3 fireballs explode from blowing up a nearby formation, then that's an easy boss. But if I attack those fireballs directly, then no boss for me. But trash mode, what if I get 2 reversals in a chain reaction, but you throw one down myself? The good news is that you'll get 3 EXs, but the bad news is that's not going to net you a boss. The better news is that the window for this is pretty generous, so even if you shoot a few reversals back mid-combo, you can still get a boss as long as 3 reversals are included in the combo somehow. As you play the game more and more, you get a better feel for what exactly will and won't net you a boss, sort of seeing how the groupings of reversal fireballs and the timings of them going back and forth, to say, hey, this is the formation I need to shoot down to get me a boss. Now if that's done with, let's see what to do if you're on the other side of a boss and want to get rid of him. So someone summoned the boss on you? Don't worry, there's a few things you can do about it. The first thing you can do is just send it back. If you activate your boss while another boss is already on screen, then their boss will go away and your boss will show up on their screen. The way you activate your boss doesn't matter for doing this. Using either meter or reversal fireballs to summon your boss will allow you to reflect the boss attack. Each method has its pros and cons in regard to stuff like timing and ease of use, but only one boss can be on screen at a time, and the last boss to be activated takes priority. If you and your opponent activate your boss at the same time or about within a second of each other, then the bosses will clash and cancel each other out. If you want to prevent your boss from doing that, you can wait a second or two after an enemy pops a boss. If you pay super close attention, you can kind of see the animations of the bosses move from one screen to the other, and if they run into each other, that's generally what causes the boss clash. Boss canceling may be an easy way to get rid of bosses, but sometimes you don't always have the resources to do that. So let's talk about fighting bosses. When a boss appears on your screen, it'll flash white for you. You can't hurt it while it's flashing, but it is still a good time to prepare, maybe when to get into a good position, a charge, etc. The boss is vulnerable after initial flashing, so you can start attacking them. How you attack will depend on your character. Kim always wants to use his charge attack, but if you're using Schmidt, you may be better off just hyper tapping. It's going to depend on a lot of factors, but you start attacking... Wait a minute. A few things you should know first. We're going to jump ahead to the next chapter to talk about how bosses operate once they're on screen. We'll come back to this. When bosses appear on screen, they generally have a specific movement pattern that is decided second they are summoned. Bosses usually have 3 phases that they go through once they're on screen. Wander, attack, and exit. Depending on the attack, the phase can go in different orders, but wander, attack, and a little wander before exit is the usual pattern. Wander is just a flying around phase. They'll kind of be vibing for a minute before they start their attack. Attack phase is self-explanatory. Exit phase is also pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go into it a little bit. Exit is like wander, except it's when the boss leaves the screen, and also the exit phase lacks a pain animation. What do I mean by the pain animation? Well, the unique thing about wander phase is that the boss will be stunned if it takes 5 more damage during this phase. This is a boss stun and the boss is invincible during this animation. Bosses can be stunned during the exit and attack phases. While it may be risky, these are good opportunities to pile on some damage if you're looking to destroy a boss. When a boss charges at you after being summoned, that also does not have a first wander phase, so that can be a good time to destroy your boss if your character has a good charge attack or if you're really confident in your hyper tapping. Bosses will sometimes move based on which side of them you're on, especially during the exit phase. It can be helpful to shoot it early so it can get into exit mode and sort of guide it to a side of the screen where it won't cause as much trouble. Here's one last thing I mentioned about the phase before we go back to talking about fighting bosses. All the wander to attack to wander to exit sequences are tied together. This means that a boss will always wander the same way before it attacks a certain way. You can use this to figure out how it's going to attack and figure out your strategy accordingly. If Miss America moves in a certain pattern before her lightning attack, then you can use that pattern as a way to know that the lightning is what's coming up next. Anyway, let's get back to talking about fighting bosses. So now we've learned how bosses work, we can talk about ways to kill bosses. Kim arguably has the ease of being able to just punch them to death. Kim's charge is very powerful and not taking too long to activate. Almost always a good choice, to be honest. But there's plenty of ways to fight a boss. I'm gonna tell you one thing you should never do to kill a boss, and that's use a bomb. Bombs do a lot of damage that can help you kill bosses easily, but it's much better for you to either try to kill a boss or dodge completely. Bombs aren't super scarce, but they are important resources that are primarily there to keep you alive. If a boss is on the screen but not threatening your life, then don't bomb. Simple as that. If you are going to attack a boss, remember how the phases work and use them to the best of your ability. Doing stuns to stop them and or forcing them to leave quicker. The point really shouldn't be to destroy a boss, but at least get it out of your way. Killing the boss isn't really super necessary. It only gets you about the same amount of meter you get for doing it perfect. It's fun to do, but not really, should be the end all be all. We'll talk about some more important options you have against bosses in the next chapter. So let's talk about general strategy. Here's my two favorites. Spamming charge attacks, and charge attack followed by up close hyper tapping. Spamming charge attacks is safer since you can do that from a distance depending on your character, but doing the damage in hyper tap is very risky. Since you can only have 2 shots on the screen at once, it requires you to get it real close to the boss and have a good mashing method. Another thing you have to consider is that not all bosses are created equally. In addition to having different attack and flying patterns, bosses also have different HP values. Here's a copy of a chart by NMT8.2i. Pause here for as much time as you need. With this information, you'll be able to have a better idea of how and when to attack a boss directly. Charge attack spam may work with weaker bosses like Schmidt's, but you'll probably need something a little different if you're fighting Ron's boss. Another thing you want to consider is all the fireballs and formations flying around. The game is still happening, and you'll probably not want to add EXs to all the boss crap you have to deal with. If you're a little new, try to focus more on surviving the boss rather than killing it. Survival is the name of the game at the end of the day. This video isn't meant to provide specific advice. I want you to develop your own style as a player, and also that's just way too much work for me. I think there's a lot of room for personal preference to do whatever you feel like you're comfortable with. Twinkle Sprites has a lot of things happening under the hood, and bosses are a big part of that. I think you're probably better informed or ready to handle bosses after watching this video, so go ahead out there and show them up for it. If you want to learn more about Twinkle Sprites, join the Discord and peruse some of our resources. We also have plenty of people looking to learn and play the game with you. Take care, and have fun twinkling.